successful. We also got a chance with Holly to see a major initiative from the Office of Career Success centered on creating Eisenberg digital assets, which we are now affectionately calling IDAs, that will expand access for our students and our graduates to an array of our career resources. So that's a very exciting initiative we've got underway. Each of our 5 key priorities that we will be addressing during the spring series are essential to Eisenberg sustaining and advancing our reputation among the best business schools, which I know our alums are very enthusiastic about. So let's turn to today's priority, creating global citizens and inclusive leaders. I should say that before we start, this priority, while we'll talk about it largely from a curricular and extracurricular perspective, and it focuses on our students, in reality, it also focuses collectively on all of Eisenberg, our students, our faculty, and our staff, where we try to ask the question, how can all of us become more active global citizens and make those around us feel included in our organization? So I have a number of guests with me today, as you can see on the screen, and I'm very happy about that. And they're going to be sharing what we're currently doing and discuss what we're going to be working on in the future as we try to do even more. Melvin Rodriguez is our Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Programs. I'm sure a number of our alums have experiences with Melvin. Thank you, Melvin, for being here today. And Alaina Macaulay is our Executive Director of our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Again, I know a number of you, probably Alaina just joined the organization in the last couple of years now. So I think, recent grads have worked with Alaina, I'm sure. So welcome to you both. I'm also really pleased to introduce 2 of our students today who have kindly agreed to fit us into busy schedules and to tell you about their Eisenberg experiences as related to this priority. So I'd like to welcome Rachel Panton and Maggie Mulligan, and we'll hear a little more from them shortly here. So hang on. So again, thanks for joining us. We also had a few questions submitted ahead of this webinar, and we'll try to address those today. And if a question comes to you while we're talking in the next hour, please feel free to just drop it in the Q&A box and we'll try to get to it. If we don't get to it during the seminar, then we'll follow up with you later on. So thank you. So any question is a good question. So let's start our conversation today on creating global citizens. I think all of us know that are here today and our alums that are out there, clearly a global economy means a new way of working. And so one of the most obvious and traditional ways we try to make students globally aware is by offering international opportunities. So Melvin, can you share with us today and our alums some of the ways, the international opportunities we have, in particular for undergrads, but can give us a little bit of an overview and what we're doing in that space?
Certainly. Thanks, Dean Massey. At Eisenberg and through the university, there are many opportunities for our students to become active global citizens. And we start right away on the first day. When they show up to orientation, we start with a quick question of, are you thinking of studying abroad? And what that does is actually does 2 things. Number one, for those students who had the idea of studying abroad, it lets them know that we're supportive of this. And number 2, for those students who maybe didn't think of it, all of a sudden something new is in their head that says to them, hey, I never thought of that, but that's a good idea. Maybe I should pursue something of this nature. So we try to help them navigate on how to get involved early and at least pursuing this opportunity of studying abroad. Many of our students, when they do go abroad, they tend to go in their junior year. But they can go at different points and they often go for a full semester. At Eisenberg, we have several faculty-led international study abroad programs, including ones including the following: business in Italy, which students will go with faculty in January. We have a culture and tourism management in Europe that takes place in May. South Africa service leadership also takes place in May. And then we have the business in Ireland, which takes place in March. This semester, of course, due to the pandemic, we are not doing these trips, but this is something that we normally do have available for our students. In addition, as far as the study abroad semester abroad is concerned, our students work with both the Eisenberg School and the university's International Programs Office in just obtaining information on where to go, how their classes transfer, and so on. And our advisors are equipped to work very well with the students and navigating these types of classes. In addition, there are some internship opportunities available abroad as well, which is kind of cool. That's another new thing that's, well, not new thing, but that's a thing that we strongly encourage students if they have the opportunity to do that. And they do take, while they're doing the internship, normally they'll take 2 or 3 classes while they're abroad and transfer those credits with them when they return. In addition to all this, we because of the huge interest that we have within Eisenberg for students going abroad, we actually have one of our academic advisors dedicated to working with the folks that are interested in studying abroad. Of course, our students can see any of the advisors, but there's one in particular, Susie Carey, who works closely and has workshops on how to even get the process started, who to connect with over an International Programs Office. And those are just some of the ways that we work closely in getting our students to continue the path of becoming global citizens.
Melvin, can you speak or comment on, I know a lot of students really want to have an international experience during their academic career. And that's true at the undergraduate level. And I know even at the graduate level, MBA programs and our MS program. Are there some financial challenges that the students face with regard to doing this that maybe we should share with our alums today?
That's an excellent question. In most cases, students tend to get, the university has a system in place where students usually end up paying the university tuition. That said, it still does become sometimes, a little expensive because of travel costs and things of that nature. And when those things happen, then the students should follow up and talk to us, because there are opportunities for different, whether it's aid help through financial aid or through scholarships that we can try to look into. And of course, our goal is to try to help the student take advantage of these opportunities. We don't want them to not take advantage just because of the fact they can't afford it. We want all our students to get involved.
Thank you. Well, I think we can all appreciate that being a global citizen isn't just about international trips and perspectives, which are really, really important, but that oftentimes it really starts in small places closer to home. And in fact, as we all know, global issues can begin to be addressed really with local solutions. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about a program that we are particularly proud of, and that is our Eisenberg Global Citizens Award program. And it speaks directly to this issue of trying to create global citizens, but by starting locally. And so I have Rachel here today. Rachel's a key player in the Global Citizens Award program, and we've asked her to join us today to talk about that program. And so don't be shy about blowing the horn of that program, because it really is wonderful. And Rachel, before you start, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're majoring in, and then how you got involved in the program?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. My name's Rachel, and I'm a senior accounting major here at UMass. I'm from Pembroke, Mass, and in the summer, actually, I'll be beginning the MSA program at Eisenberg, so I'm really excited. I got involved in the Eisenberg Global Citizens Club my first semester freshman year. And the Eisenberg Global Citizens Club is a community service club. And currently I serve as co-president of the Global Citizens Council, which is responsible for encouraging Eisenberg students to volunteer. And it's also responsible for facilitating the Global Citizens Award. And the Global Citizens Award of Outstanding Citizenship it's an award awarded to undergraduates who complete 100 hours of community service during their time at UMass. And really, in addition to the award, students are also, award recipients are given a cord for graduation, and they're recognized at graduation. And really the goal of the Eisenberg Global Citizens Award is to recognize the contributions Eisenberg students make to the local community. And then the goal of the Eisenberg Global Citizens Club is to not only make students more aware of the issues that the local Amherst community and surrounding areas face, but also to provide them with the resources and support they need to engage with those issues, to make a positive difference and really change those issues. Our candidates volunteer independently, but as a council, we host volunteering events with our partnered organizations, such as Not Bread Alone, which is a soup kitchen in downtown Amherst, Homework House in Holyoke, Mass, Craig's Doors, and a whole lot of other organizations. And really, we invite our candidates to come and volunteer with us. We also do every year, we gather a team for the Hot Chocolate Run in Northampton for Safe Passage. And right now it's, a little different. We have our candidates volunteering virtually, and we're really just hosting virtual volunteering opportunities. With that being said, I think it's important to emphasize the point that Eisenberg Global Citizens is a lot more than just volunteering. We're a community of business students who are passionate about making a positive difference on this world and carrying that ideal with us when we enter a career. And just speaking from personal experience, I decided to major in business because I really wanted to find ways to conduct business for the betterment of the community. And Eisenberg Global Citizens really connected me to students who were like-minded and really encouraged me to get out into the community and connect with the people that I would be, living around for 4 years. And just to speak to Dean Macy's point, we are the future leaders of our society. And if we want to have global impact, it really starts locally. And really, that's what Eisenberg Global Citizens embodies. Thank you.
And let me just say, it's a truly phenomenal program, and the students involved with it really make us extremely proud. And I don't think Rachel mentioned this, but I'm going to comment on this. They've contributed more than 19,000 hours of service, 19,000 hours from this club of service to our local community. And that is extremely impressive, recognizing that the students have full course loads. They're doing job and internship searches. Many of them are working. So this is really impressive, the time that you've committed.
And I was just going to add that we already have 17 seniors who will be receiving the award.
That's fantastic. Rachel, what are some examples, if you can just share some of the during this pandemic, some of the examples of the, I don't know if it's online or how you're doing service, if you can give us some ideas of the things that the members are involved in.
Yeah, so last semester we hosted an event with the Women of Eisenberg Conference, and that was just creating masks, so more of a social welfare type of aspect, which is let's spread awareness of being safe during the pandemic. So we had an event where we all learned how to sew face masks. And then we also have candidates. I don't know the exact name, so I don't want to say the name of the organization, but we have candidates where they'll help people who are blind do everyday tasks. So what you do is you get on a phone call and you might help them pick out an outfit for a job interview, or you might help them really do anything. We have a lot of candidates doing that.
That's fantastic. And I think for our alums and everyone attending today, I think what you're hearing from Rachel and hearing about the global citizens and the perspective that it's not just about, and the programs that Melvin described, it's not just being aware of things, but it's actually engaging in those things and really having an impact. And many of our international programs, the students are doing projects in those contexts, working on projects in local communities. We'd like to expand more of that. As Rachel described, the impact that we're having in our local community here, that's all good for the students, and it's good for our relationship with the community. So I I am so proud of Rachel and the rest of the students that are involved in that, and the faculty that are, as Melvin described, they're involved, and staff in these international programs, because awareness is one thing, engagement is where we really want people to be. So Rachel, thank you. Thank you for all you and the rest of your team does in this space. Let's turn our attention now to the second half. It's not unrelated, they're actually interconnected, but let's just turn our attention to creating inclusive leaders. As many of you know, inclusive leadership, and many of you are involved in this in your own organizations, is emerging as a unique and critical capability that is helping organizations, including Eisenberg, right? As I mentioned earlier, this is as much about Eisenberg as it is about what we do with our students, but helping organizations adapt to their diverse customers, diverse markets, diverse ideas and talents. So the question when we talk about inclusive leaders and inclusiveness is, how do we make people feel included? How do they feel that they're being treated fairly and respectfully, that they're being valued and that they belong in their organizations? These are not trivial questions by any stretch of the imagination. We know this. So what are we doing to try to help prepare our students to enter, work, and ultimately lead in their organizations and lead in inclusive ways? So we've got Alaina Macaulay here, our local expert heading up, as I mentioned, our executive director of our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Alaina, can you share with us some of the programs we have in place? And we've got an array of them, so don't be shy about sharing with folks some of the things that we're doing in this space, because it's some very exciting initiatives. Alaina?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. I think that to your point early on, this isn't something that's just a buzzword. Inclusive leadership isn't something that we say we must embody. And so before I talk about the student pieces, I think it's been really important, the work that we did in the fall with putting all of our faculty through DEI workshops and inclusive classrooms and fostering those inclusive spaces for our students, especially in an online learning environment. And then similarly, I know we've been very fortunate to partner with EY for the last 2 years on our Inclusive Leadership Summit, and that relationship continues to grow as they're one of our premier sponsors. This past fall, it had to be a virtual event, so we put all of our heads together on how to make that the most engaging as well as impactful experience. And so we cover topics in the ILS ranging from, allyship in the workplace, or, the populations that you identify with and how to really create change. And additionally, we were able to provide some scholarships based on some funding and donor opportunities that came along with that event, so that students didn't need to necessarily feel the burden of COVID as well as other issues. And that doesn't stop there. We have these constant conversations with the advancement of diversity in business, trying to put on events for students to feel engaged and included. Similarly, this spring, we're hosting the Bias film with director Robin Hauser. So the Bias film, if you're not familiar, I would very much encourage you and welcome you all to attend. It's on March 18th. But the Bias film is a movie that was, it kind of started out as her own passion project and understanding her own biases and uncovering some of, the stereotypes that might exist within her own world. And she really goes through this awakening, this awareness within herself, and she documents that experience. And so we're showing the film. We have the exclusive rights to show that for our UMass community, Eisenberg specifically. And we're also going to have talk back with the director and the producer of the film. So I think that'll be a really engaging opportunity. Also, it felt like it took forever to get this launched, but we were very excited. We offer a new introduction to diversity and inclusion in business course this spring. And Melvin's smiling over there because he knew how much it took to get this through all of the systems and processes. It's currently launched as an elective course at a 200 level, but it is something that we're trying to push through to make it a requirement for all of our Eisenberg students. And I will happily say that it's at capacity this semester with very little promotion. So students are very excited about having these conversations. We've had, leaders come in from Excel Sports, We've had HubSpot. We've had, I've reached out to several other companies to come in and do guest lectures and speaking on their experiences. And next week we have the Director of Diversity and Inclusion from the USOPC, so the Olympic and Paralympic Committee, coming in to talk to students about, the work that we do. And so we're constantly trying to engage students with new audiences, new perspectives, and new opportunities to hear, not just about what D&I looks like at Eisenberg, but also in the industry, because it's not just about what we do here, it's how we continue to shape, the world moving forward in the places that we end up sending our students. And then lastly, in the fall, we launched a DEI Student Council. And that was one thing that I think I'm most excited about and most proud of, just because, we didn't really know what to expect. We put out a call, students apply to this because we don't want it to be a student club or organization. We really want it to be an integral part of the institution, that students are actively a part of the change they want to see within our campus, as well as our Eisenberg community. And so we received way more applications than we intended, I think, Melvin. We read through quite a few. And we have a wonderful selection of students that are working on initiatives that they're truly passionate about, that are going to make Eisenberg far better, as we continue to move forward. And so with that, I'll kind of tee up one of our students. I know Maggie is here. We had the opportunity to invite Maggie. Maggie's involved in a lot of different things with Eisenberg, specifically Women of Eisenberg, also has attended ILS and is a part of our DEI Student Council. So Maggie, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about your experience within Eisenberg and like some of these initiatives we're talking about, and the value overall for you as a student participating in these.
Yes, so hello everybody. My name is Maggie Mulligan. I'm a senior hospitality and tourism management major. I'm from Beverly, Massachusetts, and I actually came to UMass and Eisenberg halfway through my sophomore year, so I'm a transfer student. I came to Eisenberg because of the community that I felt looking into it. From a transfer student perspective. I remember driving down like the university drive and seeing just like the community of people, and they all looked really well connected and happy at the university. And that was something that I was craving at my other university, and then all the great things that Eisenberg does for career success. But getting involved on campus was one of the greatest things that I did for my personal and professional experience. And development. So I'm the president of the Women of Eisenberg Conference this year. And as Alaina mentioned, I'm also on the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Student Council group. I'll talk about the Women of Eisenberg Conference first. If anybody doesn't know, the Women of Eisenberg Conference was created in 2014. It was created to bring together students, alumni, industry professionals, and faculty to our UMass Amherst campus in the campus center. It's like an 8-day professional development conference to discuss the opportunities, challenges, and lessons learned in the workplace. This year, similar to ILVS, we also adapted to the virtual space and held the conference online, and we did a virtual speaker series that brought together more than 350 students, alumni, faculty, staff, and our corporate sponsors. We had a keynote by former Olympian and UMass alumna, Brianna Scurry. We did some panel breakout sessions on topics such as mental health, creating value through mentorship. And then we also hosted a diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace and beyond panel. And then to round things out, we did a guided networking session. I've been on the committee for the past 2 years, and I served as the vice president of operations before. And so I've really gotten to know the group of women that I've been working with and our advisors, and then Eisenberg faculty and leadership like Alaina and Dean Massey. And they've all been so supportive of the ideas that we've brought to the table on how to make Eisenberg more inclusive and what we can do to keep pushing forward for our students to become well-rounded leaders going forward post-grad, and then starting now. And that's like the big thing, starting now, like what we can do to make impact.
So I think, what you've heard, like with the Women of Eisenberg, which has been such a successful program, really largely driven by the students, but also with the support and involvement of a number of our alumni, our female alumni and allies and friends. And so For those of you who don't know, some of you out there may have participated as panelists and contributed in other ways, or when you were a student. And it's a really wonderful setting. This year, of course, it was virtual. Last year, I got an opportunity to participate face-to-face, and it was just a wonderful networking opportunity, and you get to hear all sorts of things. Alaina, could you talk a little bit too about, describe for us a little bit more about the Inclusive Leadership Summit, because it was the second year this year that we did it virtually, but maybe just describe a little bit more about what that program, because it's a nice parallel program to the Women of Eisenberg conference, which Maggie very nicely described.
Yeah, of course. So in the first year, obviously, we were all able to come together in person, which made it a much more exciting event. But like I said, a lot of thought went into the second year on how to create that same framework moving forward in a virtual setting. And so it consists of, in the first year, it was workshops, panels, discussion. We had a kickoff evening where it was an opportunity to network and socialize, and we had a career fair opportunity for students that were registered, which we also helped with Chase to kind of prepare the students on meeting and engaging with the employers. As we moved it virtually, we didn't want to lose any components of that. Because we really wanted to be, hold it true to what we were doing. And so we had panels on inclusive leadership during times of crisis. We want to know, how do we stay in as inclusive leaders during a pandemic, right? When many people are out of jobs, or, home care situations look a lot different now and things like that. And so that prompted a lot of really great conversation. Also, everything we saw transpire during 2020 with, various violence and murders against Black people in our country. And so we had a conversation on race specifically in the workplace, and leading through situations like Black Lives Matter. We also have opportunities to engage with some of our younger alum, so that students have an opportunity to kind of see and hear that career progression, especially as a lot of our alum are making decisions based on the inclusiveness and inclusive nature of the organization, so that they can be their authentic selves once they actually transition into the workforce. And so when we partner with these companies that want to support Inclusive Leadership Summit, and this year the virtual series, we bring in a lot of the speakers that kind of speak to these large issues that we're seeing in our world right now, as well as what we're seeing in our nation and things that we're seeing locally. And it also provides an opportunity for our students to engage one-on-one with employers. It provides an opportunity for our students to engage and network with each other. And so we're hoping that we can continue to support that moving forward.
Yeah, I think Alaina is touching on this, and I think, we've had, and the Inclusive Leadership Summit is one platform. There are other platforms, Women of Eisenberg, that we use to have what are oftentimes difficult conversations. And I think that those platforms and the opportunities we put in front of students and the other members of our Eisenberg community, it's really about opening our eyes and opening our minds. And so that is so important to us as a school, and certainly as we try to prepare our students going forward into the workforce. I also want to put a plug for the Bias film. Alaina invited everybody, and as she said, Alaina, is it March 11th?
It's March 18th. I'm actually pulling up the link so that I can share that with everyone in the chat.
It's I've seen the film before, and I had an opportunity to spend some time with Robin Hauser, the director of the film. And what is most interesting, as Alaina alluded to, Robin Hauser did not intend to be in the film when they were originally producing it, the documentary. And then she did one of the tests that they were kind of including, and realized that she was biased, and that she didn't realize she was biased in certain ways. And so you'll see Robin in the film kind of being exposed and having her own eyes opened to her own bias, and we are all biased. So it's a really wonderful film. It's a great platform to engage in conversation. And as I said, opening our eyes and opening our minds is so important. Let me turn, and everyone has been so wonderful sharing their experiences, the opportunities that we put in front of students. And of course, we've got two wonderful students here that have shared their experiences and contributions and the value of these programs. Let me turn to a couple of questions that came in advance of our webinar today that maybe we can see if we can address for our alumni. We have a question from Charles, and he says, beyond headcount metrics, how can companies improve internal processes around diversity to improve team productivity? That's a huge and kind of a relevant question to certainly our topic today. Alaina, do you want to talk a little bit about this, since I have a feeling you're kind of trying to address this in the class you're teaching right now? So we'll get it hot off the presses.
Yeah, of course, that's a great and very large question. So if you want, I can also provide the syllabus for those that are interested, because it is a big question. So
online, we'll do it.
Yes. So, I think that beyond headcount metrics, we talk about, diversity. Sometimes people refer to as counting the heads, and inclusion making the heads count. Realistically, what we're doing is we're trying to leverage both at the same time. You can't truly have inclusion without diversity. And so recognizing that in order to improve team dynamics, you need to understand your own biases, similar to what we're talking about with the bias film coming up. We all have biases, right? They're ingrained. We've understood, we've all grown up a particular way, and things might feel more comfortable to some than they do to others. And so starting out with that awareness piece is really where we're starting out the foundation of the class, understanding, where we come from, the identities we have, both visible and invisible dimensions of diversity. Then moving on to particular populations, things that might impact people differently that we might not consider because it's not who we are, or it's not an identity that we share. And then the last 4 weeks are really talking about those inclusion components that we're talking about. So not just about bringing people to the table, right? But if people can't express or vocalize, their ideas in a way that feels authentic to them, if they feel as though they have to assimilate and conform, that's not going to be a productive team environment, as you say. And so a lot of that work starts internally from the top down, and recognizing that, as much as it's coming from the top down, it also has to be moving from the bottom up. And so we're trying to engage all dimensions of an organization when we're having these discussions. And so what we're trying to do is enable our students to have more comfort with the uncomfortable, so that we can, start having these conversations across difference. Because as we've said in many of the classes before, many of us are taught to not point out difference. Or not recognize it, or to not understand it. And so what we're trying to do is really stretch beyond that and say, I might not know everything, but I'm here and willing to learn. And so that's where that collaboration is coming from. So I hope that answers the question.
That's fantastic. And I think for our alums out there, and Alaina knows this and Melvin knows this, our recruiters in the companies, and many of the companies that you work for, are very focused on these issues. And the more that we are able to prepare our students to walk into an organization with at least some skills and competencies in hand, the better those students will be ready to contribute on day one. And so the course that Alaina is offering this semester, and the topics are certainly relevant and very, very important to us. We have another relevant question from our alumni, Colin. Colin wants to know how we at Eisenberg are taking care of our own community, and what steps have been taken to look after the students' mental health during this pandemic. And it's certainly been a year ago, almost a year now. And I don't think any of us thought that we'd be in it this long, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. So we're very hopeful and very promising. But Melvin, can you talk about some of the things that we're doing to try to help students manage their mental health?
Certainly. An excellent question actually around this time, because as you said, when we first left, we were told it was 2 weeks. If you recall, we were going on spring break, and then we unfortunately were just never able to return for the rest of that term. And now we're moving on to term 3, if you will, of this. So one of the things that the university is taking very seriously is the well-being of students because of there's just so many demands, so many different things going on, whether it's student now is at home with siblings that they normally weren't used to being. I've talked to first year students who they didn't get to transition to the college in the way that they normally would. And oftentimes they struggled with dancing between, I have to go to class, but then I have my little brother and sister that I have to take care of because mom and dad are at work. All of those types of things we're taking into account. So that created a lot of new things that we as a university and higher ed as a whole really needed to consider and figure out how to work with. And what we did is basically we circled our wagons and figured out what do we have here at UMass that can help these students. And I'm involved with a leadership team on campus, which we look at these types of things, student success from various angles, mostly academics, but then obviously with what's happening now, the well-being has just gotten incredibly important. So we work closely with the Dean of Students Office, our Center for Counseling and Psychological Health Services, Disability Services. We even reached out to the CMAS, our Center for Multicultural Advancement and Student Success, work closely with our Diversity and Inclusion Office here at Eisenberg and trying to figure out how do we connect with the students? How do we keep them going? Within the undergrad advising office, what we were doing at Eisenberg is asking students when we meet with them, how are you doing? A simple question like that opens up a lot. And then we train the advisors to not only ask the question, but to listen and then figure out, is there something more to it? Is there a resource we should be encouraging the student to look into, and then trying to follow up with the students in the cases that we should be doing or should be following up. Within the leadership of across campus, what we did was we actually use a system called Navigate that we keep track of students through advising. And one of the questions we purposefully put into that is to encourage the advisors across campus to ask that question, how are you doing? A simple question like that gives us so much, and it allows the student to take that deep breath and just realize that somebody cares. And so that's really our goal. It's trying to figure out how do we connect the student to the right places. If it's not us, we know that not all advisors are psychologists. And so we don't want them to feel like they're working out of their own lane, if you will. But we're trying to provide them with opportunities or resources. In fact, when we reach back here, this is one of the things that we share with, and if you can see it, we call it the maroon folder. We make sure that every faculty on campus and every staff, we try to get those to. And it just basically has a lot of information on resources available on campus. And it's just important for folks the advisors and faculty to understand that they're not alone in this, that there is a group or groups throughout the campus that we can help the students. So it's very important. It's an excellent question. And we do try to do our best to ensure that we're looking beyond just the classroom experience. What's happening at home? We have students who are going through civil wars in their countries while they're trying to take classes. So it's just all these types of things do work on the students' well-being, and we have to address those things as their institution of higher ed.
I just want to echo really the all hands on deck approach that both Eisenberg and the university has taken with regard to this, not only for the students, but also for faculty and staff, much like our alums who are in their own work context, particularly working remotely, and you have either elder care or children care, your kids aren't in, brothers and sisters, as Melvin mentioned, they're not in school, and so you're responsible for them. And it's been a very difficult situation from multiple perspectives. I think, as Melvin mentioned, the maroon folder, we also had at the beginning of last fall, we had our mandatory faculty kickoff meeting that for those faculty that are going to be teaching. And we went through all the resources with the faculty so that they were that they knew what was available for students as well as for faculty and staff. But just some little tricks of the trade that we encourage faculty to do was because a lot of our courses, if they're on via Zoom, the synchronous session, we encourage faculty to join the Zoom session, 5 minutes before the start of class, so that you could just have some time to engage with the students. And as Melvin said, how are you doing? How are things going? And really encouraging faculty to kind of keep an eye on students as best we can, even in a remote situation. And I think that has helped. I think the students have appreciated it. And we received many notes on that. But as Melvin said, it's a range of things we deal with. And as Melvin noted, we've got students in Myanmar that have had a terrible situation, trying to continue their education this semester, and we're doing everything we can to support them along with all of our students. So, well, do we have any other questions from our attendees today? I think we've kind of did address them. Thanks to Alaina, Melvin, Rachel, and Maggie. I think, did we miss anything that anybody on the panel wants to add that I've missed? All right, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Here in Amherst, I think we're going to hit about 50 degrees and it's sunny. So I think that we're all looking towards spring. But we really love having the chance to tell everyone, our alums and our friends, what we're doing and try to keep you in the circle of all the wonderful things going on at the Eisenberg community. And we're so proud of the opportunities and programs that we're offering now, the ones that you heard about today. But as in the case of all 5 priorities that we'll be touching on during the spring series, we always know there is more we can do. And so your support as alumni and friends is so important to making this happen, whether it's financial support, engagement on panels, as we've talked about, the Inclusive Leadership Summit, the Women of Eisenberg, or giving our students opportunities for internships and jobs. We appreciate all the support. So thank you again for all you do. And so please be sure to join us next month. First on March 18th for the bias film. That would be a great thing to do. But on March 25th, we'll be having our next in the series of our lunchtime chats. We'll be talking about the priority of inspiring innovation in teaching and learning. And we've got some really exciting things that we've been doing this year and that we've got on the docket coming up. So we'll be sending an email invitation in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And I want to wish everybody a very, very happy weekend. Hopefully the weather stays good and we can enjoy a little tickle of spring. So thanks to Maggie, Rachel, you guys make us proud every day. Melvin, you make us run. Alaina, you make us run. So I can't be more thankful. They're my go-to people. So thanks to everybody. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks.